Hi folks, today we're going to discuss the Eightfold Path. What is it? So I'm Doug Smith. I'm the study director at the Secular Buddhist Association. That's secularbuddhism.org. Please go ahead and subscribe if you want to watch more videos about early Buddhism, secularism, philosophy, and these kinds of related topics. And stick around to the end. I'll give you a URL of a very good general introduction to the Eightfold Path. What is the Eightfold Path? That's a huge topic. In a certain sense, the Eightfold Path is the whole of the Dharma. The first of the elements of the Eightfold Path is right view. Now, there's many ways of understanding right view, but I think that the best way to start is to say that right view is the understanding that there is a distinction between healthy and unhealthy ways of thinking and of acting, that there's skillful and unskillful ways of doing things. Without that general background, general ethical understanding of the way we behave in the world, you're really not going to have any interest in a path that's supposed to make life better, because you have to begin with some understanding that life can get better, that we can get more skillful, that we can get more healthy in the way that we interact. So that's right view. Next is right intention, where we set up an intention, therefore, to behave in a certain way, to behave in a way that's more skillful. We set up the intention to try not to harm other beings, to try not to harm ourselves. And so right intention is the second of these first two factors, which we can think of as the wisdom factors. We begin with some modicum of wisdom that gets us towards trying to behave in a better way. We start with a modicum of wisdom in a way that's supposed to impact our intention in daily life. So those are the first two, and that's the wisdom part of the path. So the next three path factors have to do with ethics. The Pali word is sila. And the first of these has to do with right speech. How we interact with others around us, both speaking and nowadays we would say texting, telephoning, emailing, whatever. There are various aspects of right speech. Right speech in Buddhism is one of the most fruitful topics, and one of the ones I think that we have the most to learn from. But the basic idea is obviously we don't lie. We try to be as much as possible truthful with other people, try not to mislead. And this is an aspect of right speech that, of course, Buddhism shares with other religious and non-religious traditions. But also we're supposed to avoid harsh speech. We're supposed to avoid divisive speech. That is to say, speech that divides one person from another, that makes one person dislike another, hate another. We're supposed to also avoid idle speech or gossip. That is, speech that has no particular end except to waste time. Now, with all of these aspects of speech, we can see that there are pluses and minuses. We can understand that, boy, sometimes it's necessary to speak harshly. And there are certain circumstances under which that might be necessary. It might be necessary even to speak in a divisive way if somebody's being harmful in some way and you have to warn people from them. Sometimes gossip can be useful if we're getting across information that's important to people's lives. So we shouldn't take these as commandments, but rather as a general framework around which we should think to organize our speech such that we're being less harmful in a general way. And if harsh speech is to no end, in other words, if there's no real point to the harsh speech, if we're just venting our anger, maybe there's a better way of behaving in that circumstance where we're not being so harsh, let's say. So that's right speech. Right action, these are in many ways not that controversial. We should avoid killing. We should avoid stealing. We should avoid sexual misconduct. These are classic ideas in many different cultures around the world. One might say even all cultures, but they hold a central place in Buddhism. And even if we're not overtly killing or stealing or committing sexual misconduct, it still is a place that we can inhabit for a while and try to think about the ways in which we may commit theft in small fashions, or the ways that we may take life in small fashions that really aren't necessary for us. Killing small animals, killing insects may be necessary in certain circumstances, but may not be necessary in all circumstances. So that's a way that we can expand our practice. So in any event, that's right action. Right livelihood is similar to right action. That is to say, we shouldn't involve ourselves in a kind of livelihood, in a job that causes harm to other people, to other beings, harm that's not necessary. And again, it may be that our job is not one that's obviously harmful, but maybe it's harmful in small ways. Now, I mean, of course, every job probably has some harm in it somewhere. So a part of that awareness may involve a kind of thinking about that and how that impacts us. Within the Buddha's lifetime, he had a group of livelihoods that he considered wrong livelihoods. These were very specific. Things like not trading in living beings, not trading in, let's say, the slave trade, not trading in poisons, not trading in armaments, weapons, and not trading in meat. These were things that the Buddha considered wrong livelihood because they were directly involved in the harming of other beings. But he kept it rather specific. He did not include, for example, soldiery in wrong livelihood, which is something he could have done, but he didn't. We should look at his list as something, just as an inspiration for ourselves to try to think about our own livelihood and how it might be dangerous or hurtful to others and ourselves. Those three aspects constitute the ethical part. The last three are the meditative part of the Eightfold Path. And that begins with right effort. Now, right effort is the aspect of the meditative path, or bhavana, cultivation, where we cultivate certain kinds of states in ourselves. And effort, of course, right effort is the aspect where we try to make arise in ourselves those states that we find to be healthy, to be beneficial, to be skillful in the world. And we try to minimize those states that are unhealthy or unhelpful to ourselves. So, for example, we might find that being friendly and being patient are healthy states, are helpful states. So when we see ourselves being patient or friendly, we try to cultivate that. We try to make that state remain with ourselves as long as possible. And if we find ourselves in a state where we don't feel patience, where we don't feel friendliness, we try and in whatever way we can to make those states arise. So patience arises such that friendliness arises if it's not there. And similarly, if there's a state that's unhealthy, that's unhelpful, such as, let's say, hatred or greed, anger, that we are aware of that when it happens. And we do what we can to try to minimize those states when they're there. That is part of the effort that we make. There's aspects to effort where we can overdo it or we can underdo it. We can overdo it and become very overwrought. We can become overly stiff-necked. We can become overly self-righteous, which is a problem. We can do things in such a way that we actually make it worse for ourselves if we're efforting, as they say, efforting too much. But on the other side, we can also make things worse on ourselves if we're not putting in enough effort, if we kind of get overly lazy, if we forget about these kinds of things. So that's right effort. That's the first aspect of the meditative path. That leads into right mindfulness. Now, mindfulness, many of us will know, is probably the most famous form of Buddhist meditation right now. And it involves calming ourselves down and getting ourselves into a state of open and non-judgmental awareness of the world and of ourselves. We make ourselves aware of the state of our own body, at the state of our own mind, those kinds of states that we find pleasant and unpleasant when they happen. We make ourselves aware of the emotional state of our minds when we're in states of anger, when we're in states of happiness, when we're in states of kindness, patience, equanimity, and so on. And without that awareness, of course, we have nothing to work with. We need to know that we're in these states in order to be able to work on them, in order to be able to put up the effort. And also, this kind of mindfulness enables us or helps us to be aware of the changing nature of reality, of reality's difficult nature, of the fact that reality doesn't provide a secure refuge. It makes us aware of the fact that our own minds are continually changing, our own experiences are continually changing. So these are all aspects of right mindfulness. In itself is a very, very large topic. The last aspect of the Eightfold Path is right concentration. Right concentration is, in the original texts, understood as jhanic meditation, which is to say absorption meditation, absorption in a particular kind of mental state, particular kinds of mental states, there are 4 of them, that are pleasant, They arise initially during long periods of meditation for most of us as an experience of joy, of rapture, of bliss. If we focus on that and make that state or those related states focus of the mind and sort of enter into them in absorptive fashion where we're absorbed by them, those can be very, very pleasant states of abiding, as they're called, and can, as a result, be very happy and useful states, healthy states for us, so long as we don't assume that that is the aim of practice. The aim of practice is not to sit in jhanic states, of course. The aim of practice is to use these states as a technique for creating happiness within ourselves that we can then take into the world in our daily life. And even though jhanic states are themselves very difficult to achieve and take a lot of effort, and so therefore don't tend to be the kinds of things that lay people are very interested in, nevertheless, we can still say that there is an aspect of the path of right concentration that we should cultivate. That is to say, the factor of calmness, of focus, of even one-pointedness, so that we can use that ability of calm to get towards a better understanding of mindfulness, towards a deeper kind of mindfulness. So those are the 8 aspects of the Eightfold Path in a nutshell. Now, for those of you who are interested in a more detailed introduction, there's a very good ebook or PDF out by Bhikkhu Bodhi called The Noble Eightfold Path, and I'm going to include an URL to it down on the screen here. That is something that I think many people who want a more detailed introduction to the path would find very, very interesting. Now, that said, this is Bhikkhu Bodhi is a traditional monk. In his lengthy introduction to the Eightfold Path, he does include a more traditional interpretation of such features as rebirth and so on. And those of us who come from a more secular background can overlook those, read through them, skip them. They're not very long. Most of what he deals with is an understanding of the Eightfold Path from the early tradition. I hope that would be useful to many people who are watching this video, even if necessarily interested in the most traditional aspects. So I hope that was helpful to you. And if you are interested in these videos, please consider subscribing. I have a subscribe button here. We generally deal with issues of early Buddhism, secularism, secular Buddhism, and sort of related philosophical topics. And if you have any questions and comments, please feel free to also leave them in the section down below. I always like to hear anything you have on your minds. Thanks very much for watching, and hope to see you in the next one.